1, 2, 1, 2.
Yes! There we go. Right, forget everything that just happened and welcome to Dads at Work. Dads that claim they're professionals and probably aren't. Okie dokie, so welcome to the first episode, we think anyway, of Dads at Work. We're going to jump straight in. So, there are more than 6 million dads with dependent kids in the UK. But for many, it's less we are family and all by myself. Now, fatherhood can shrink your world. I know this. Mates disappear. Weekends blur into soft play and supermarket trips. And really the only social life you've got left is the school WhatsApp group. And, that is just a tragedy. But that is where DadLaSoul comes in. Set up in 2016, they are flipping the script with toddler discos, real talk and spaces that genuinely let dads connect, create and feel a bit more themselves again. Whether you're under pressure, living on a prayer, or on a slow ride down the highway to hell after one too many toddler tantrums, you're not alone. This week on Dads at Work, we are dropping the needle on what modern dad life really sounds like with the man behind DadLaSoul, Dan Flanagan, making sure no dad gets stuck on repeat. Dan, welcome to the podcast.
I also adore that every time we record, the coppers come past, so
it's all right. We didn't pick that up this end because I was mid monologue. So hopefully we can edit out the coppers if they did make it onto the recording. But Dan, welcome. We'll pretend we've not just met 30 minutes ago and had many tech issues. So it's a pleasure to have you.
Nobody likes the grass. Let's just move on.
we can edit that out. We can edit that out.
We can.
Yeah, but Dan, you've been on a previous podcast that I was producing many years ago. But for those that don't know, but should know what DadLaSoul is, can you just give us a brief description?
We are a community interest company that was set up about 8 years ago. We act as a Trojan horse. So Our idea, I suppose, is that we create social lives that save lives.
Yeah.
Bottom line, if you put a poster in the window up there, go, hello, middle-aged men, come over here and talk about your feelings, or maybe admit that you're being a Billy No mates.
Yeah.
I'd be on my own. But we put a range of activities on, whether that be on Saturdays with the kids, Thursday nights with the lads, sea swimming, I'll go into more detail, theatre trips. And we are now, we're 8 years old. We've got DadLaSoul is in New Zealand, the Bronx, the Czech Republic, and it is a huge community of dads and male carers.
Yeah,
Our youngest is 16. He's doing his GCSEs at the moment. He goes with parents. Our eldest is a 70-something-year-old granddad who's got custody of his grandchildren.
Yeah.
We've got guys that are in temporary accommodation, but we've also got guys that are on 7-figure salaries. Single parents, co-parents, step-parents, guys that have gone through IVF, miscarriage, happily married, guys that have gone through the adoption process, foster carers. There probably isn't a type of dad or male carer that we don't have as part of our crew.
And that is amazing because
awesome.
you're
So
building
good.
that huge community of dads. And you touched on it there, Dan. It's like, no matter whether you're earning 6 figures or not earning anything at all at the moment, being a dad is something that you can't. Doesn't matter how much money you've got in the world, it's not going to make you feel less lonely, is it? At the end of the day,
And the role is no different. No matter how much what you're doing, the role remains the same.
Your baby's not born knowing that you're a millionaire.
No,
Yeah. So, I suppose
there's still the guilt, the shame.
Yeah. And there's the whole reason behind it of like, so we've sort of touched on what it is, but I'd quite like to understand why, Dan. Like, why DadLaSoul? I mean, it's brave of you, 2016, to put your head above the parapet, because men's mental health is definitely something that's come about in the last few years, I would say. It's got a lot of traction in the last few years. 2016, maybe not. So what made you,
What was the spark?
Yeah, what was that spark?
What was the spark?
If there was a
probably,
spark.
No, there was definitely some moments.
Yeah.
So the longer version of it, so I'll keep that, was that when I was about 6, my parents divorced. My mum was very ill. My dad was awarded custody of me and my 3 sisters. So I sort of grew up with a male, primary carer, and I saw how the world was not set up for that. Didn't notice it because it was just, our life. It was only years later when I became a dad myself, I realised how things hadn't changed. At the time, I was happily married, nice house in the suburbs, swanky job. Got everything that society told me I had to. But I was really struggling. I'd leave very early in the morning to do the commute. If I was lucky, I'd get home in the evenings, put my son to bed. More often than I probably would have liked, I was probably still on my phone there, answering client emails.
Yeah, know the feeling.
On Saturdays, which is like traditional dad day, taking out the park, soft play, and I'd be on my own. And you'd be a Billy No mates. We'd moved to a new town, didn't know anybody. Or the friends that we had met, they were the people that my now ex-wife had met on the school run or the nursery run. They were her friends, and then her friends' partners. And our whole social life, as you do when you have young children, it revolves around keeping the kids busy. 100%. So they were lovely people, but they weren't actually my people. No. And I've just felt, I was really, really struggling. But I then thought there's this line, the authors, I don't know if you're aware of the work of Sam Delaney, the Guardian journalist and author, incredible stuff. And there's almost like a middle-class guilt. I've got a good job, nice house.
Yeah.
Why the hell am I complaining?
Yeah.
But there was no rule book. There was no guidebook. So, I just got quite low, if I'm brutally honest. And I just did a post one day, I think, did somebody want a dad's play date? Convinced a mate of mine in Brighton, where we're based, give us his office space. I've got mates at DJs, brought in some soft play. Had 14 dads turn up, 20 odd kids. Nobody knew each other. But the penny drop then was nobody was on their phones.
Yeah.
They were going chatting. I thought, I'm not used to seeing this many dads in this space unless it's some other kid's birthday party. Yeah. And then it's all the mums will take over.
Yes.
All the dads will withdraw to the kitchen and they're having really socially awkward conversations about work and football.
Probably over a Carlsberg or some dreadful lager like that.
Yeah. And I feel quite socially awkward quite a lot of the time. So it's like, I don't want any of that. And from that first moment, I suppose, the penny dropped. And I thought, why doesn't this exist? Do a Google. Thousands of mum and baby groups, millions of mum and toddler groups. Where the hell do we fit in? And when I did go to those groups, I'd be on my own. I was accused of being a paedophile, accused of being there to have an affair, be told, what was I doing there because it was a Monday morning, didn't have a proper job. And I thought, I just simply cannot be the only person. So, I wrote a Dadafesto, as it was called there, to put my flag in the ground. And then, it's just, there was no plan. There's still, well, there is now because we're grown-ups. We do have a business plan or, but it's just like, I want to do something and I cannot be the only one. And the more I spoke to people and put on these range of events, then people, it's that adage, isn't it? Build it and they will come. And come. So I think the last 8 years, 500 events in, 12,000 people through the door.
Wow.
And they just keep coming.
That's some serious traffic. Awesome. Yeah. That is some serious traffic. That is amazing. That is amazing, Dan. I suppose at Dad's at Work, when we were on the pilot episode, we're obviously interested in people like yourself music, you've got your own thing going. But by the very nature of having your own thing going, I'm quite interested in how you balance that with your own family life. Do you find that it's sort of, sometimes it's a hindrance, sometimes you're not able to spend as much time with your family, or is this something you can bring your family along to and with you on that journey?
Probably all three, if I'm brutally honest. My lad's now 13. He's bigger than I have. He's got hairs in odd places. He doesn't want to go to those things. The initial play dates, obviously he did. At the time I was working full time, so this was evenings and weekends, and then more evenings and more weekends as it grew and grew and grew. It did probably become quite an obsession. And I nearly broke several times, having quite I was a strategist for a think tank and creative agency.
So that was the day job then?
That was the day job. And then I do DadLaSoul in the evening, weekends. But then I realised as it got more involved, I was doing probably 78 hours a week. Then, I suppose, what was it? About 3 years ago now, I got made redundant.
We've all been there. It is just nothing ever say makes it any better. It's that, it wasn't you. It's like nothing you can say in that situation makes you feel better.
We did it. We're still very good friends. But it was just the business had changed and the landscape had changed. It's like, how do I find a job that allows me to do this? And also my profile was growing. So I'd go to events and I wouldn't be down from the paid organisation. People would know me about this. I want to talk about this. So there's like, how do I find a role that does that? And my lovely good lady, who at the time was doing the book, she said, look, there's a little bit of money in the account. See what happens if you just went full time for this for 3 months. See what you can do rather than having to do these sort of calls at 9 o'clock on a Thursday and cancel date night. And I did, and it worked. And 3 years down the line, this is my full-time job. Still an obsession, probably still doing far too many hours. So you see the line where there is the passion and the purpose. It's amazing because I get to basically make stuff up as I go along, work with people that I actually really want to work with. So I don't have a hierarchy of suits and assholes to put up with, but I do have a responsibility to the charities or the funders that give us the money, but also to the thousands of men and dads that we support. So we can't fail, as we nearly did. November last year.
But really, that recently?
Yeah, man, because the charitable sector, as you know, the last couple of years, funding's been a nightmare. But what people didn't realise is that the events were still going on, the profiles going on. I did a TED talk, a global TED talk.
Yes, I saw that. Very good.
All of that. But didn't realise underneath that we had $3,000 in the bank. We probably had to close by Christmas. Wow. So I was trying to juggle all of that. We did a crowdfunder because I had no choice but to go public with it. And that was beautiful. The amount of support and goodwill that we had built up over those 8 years. The community came and backed us. That gave us some breathing space, then allowed us to bring in a fundraiser. So now that situation is dramatically different, and we bit of an exclusive, but we've had a considerable amount of funding in. So we're going to be launching in 4 new locations.
Did you say that's an exclusive?
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Touch on that.
Thank you very much, Dan.
We were speaking before about what we wanted to find out from you, Dan, and a little bit more about the vision for the future was definitely on our list of DadLaSoul is here now, X amount of members. Where's DadLaSoul going? What I wanted to hopefully touch on a little bit more about was we've got the genesis of where it started, but when it came to initially growing the community and those first few events that you put on, Dan, how did that work? So you've got your friends, the DJs, and you're putting on events. Was there anything else surrounding that you did to start building that community and to see it flourish to where we are now?
No, not in any structured way. My background also was in marketing and PR.
Yeah.
So I'm quite good at telling a story. And what I would do is I put the events on in really interesting places.
Okay.
As a side to DadLaSoul, I was also putting on large scale afternoon raves for families called Tot Rocking Beats.
Okay. Awesome.
Great name, by the way. Love that. Absolutely.
Thank you. I love a pun.
Yeah. Your website's full of them. You can tell, Dan. It is good though.
But that was a very strong, brand in itself. So we'd have thousands of people at those raves. And the community just naturally grew. But there was no. I want to do this for
Rocking
mental
Beats
health.
a voluntary thing as well that you were doing, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So Top Rocking Beats is still our legal name.
Yeah.
And then I had DadLaSoul as a project. I had another organisation or another project called Don't Believe the Hype, which was a content agency for dads. So I was juggling 3 different brands and a day job. And I have too many ideas. That's the problem. But the mental health thing, it was never there. It just literally happened through I'd get these fellas together. And because I suppose of my own social awkwardness, I hate small talk. Actually I'm struggling with this thing, and where suddenly I'd become in as Mr. Confident, the event organizer, saying, well, actually, no, I'm, the terrible twos, or I'm guilty of this, or I'm really struggling because I don't think, I'm performing as a dad in a way, I was very simple-minded, but it's almost like I used to give myself KPIs as a dad.
I'm with you. It's almost like the self-fulfilling stereotype that dad needs to be there, dad needs to provide, but it's a stereotype we weirdly hold ourselves all to, and maybe not each other. It's a weird one, really strange one.
Can you say that? You mentioned that's really interesting about the KPI side of being that have, quote unquote, the KPIs that you mentioned. Have they changed from way back when you initially thought about it to now?
Oh, absolutely. My whole world view has changed. I'm not so hard on myself. So, for an example, when I was working full time in the evenings, I was very guilty. I felt very guilty and very shamed about that because I wanted to be a provider, but I also want to be a hands-on. Come a Saturday with my then sort of 3-year-old, I would schedule in 3 or 4 like major activities every week. Like, we're going to do this in the morning, then and that, not realizing that, dude, he's had a full-on week anyway. He might just want to, hang out and do very little. But my whole, I need to be active and hands-on. So but that kind of shifted with just conversations through the community, understanding how other people did it, feeling, it's okay that if you just want to sit around your pants and eat Pringles, and hit each other with cushions.
It's a good activity. But I get you. Sometimes it's like you plan the best day out in your mind, and then it happens and it's like, well, why isn't this the best day out he's having? Why was, the other day laying on the sofa watching, I don't know, somebody he watches at the moment. It's all changed from when I was younger, but something on CBeebies. But it is that the high pressureness of it, and you hold yourself so you just put these targets in place, and you're setting yourself up for a fall, really, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. But you never mentioned it. I would never have actually told anybody.
Yeah,
at the time, because I want to be this, but as I want to be a emotionally intelligent, switched on modern man.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of work about this recently about role modeling. But if you think back to the role models that maybe we had, right, they're probably not going to be the role models that you'd want your children to have, because it was like, who could get the drunkest, who could take the most drugs, who could roll out of nightclubs, the Liam Gallagher's, the Gazzers, or whoever that is. Actually, our frames of reference have moved on, but we as men, that's an ongoing piece of work for us. So we need the support to go, this model, I don't really understand it, or can you tell me how to do this, without feeling like a failure, without feeling like, potentially going to be called out to be a bigot about something, because you don't understand. And it's the education, and that's where the key is.
100%. It's like from a very early point in your dad life, you are made to feel like that, I don't want to say spare part, but a spare part in a way, a part that goes out and isn't seen, who does the providing.
You can't be trusted. I was there with the midwife. I was there to make the tea and stay out of the way of the grown-ups.
Yeah.
Didn't even bother to ask my name. Didn't go, by the way, how are you feeling? Like, not having any sleep, but yet still going to have to get up and go to work. But that work's an escape. But if you do not perform in your job, you will get sacked. You will lose the house, and your family will be destitute. Nobody bothered to ask that. I catastrophized it in my head, but you know what I mean? They are traditionally those roles, and especially through public services and stuff like that. You'll go to the doctors, they won't even bother to ask your name, or they'll say, we can't talk to you unless mum's here. The schools,
I've had that. I've had that. Yeah, and it's
school won't phone you up and ask us a problem. Yeah.
When you're looking at role models, and particularly for the dads that are in your community, Dan.
Yeah.
I'd like to ask you first as well. In particular, who do you look to in terms of a role model now? In terms of your current idea of the ideal role model, as the role has changed in terms of traditional versus a modern day parenting, modern day dad.
That's a really,
not to put you on the spot at all.
No, it's a very good question.
I'm
definitely
fascinated.
Yeah,
because I think
the thing is that there's role models, but also that's their public persona.
Yeah,
you don't actually how they perform, off camera. But I just think somebody that understands that maybe having the swankiest business card isn't the most important thing. The guy that actually shows up, who gives a shit, that cares, that doesn't go out on a Friday night to get absolutely levered to spend the money, so then the next day when he's with the kids, he's hungover. And that guy that shows up, so it isn't just the rich and famous and successful. We've got guys that are doing some remarkable stuff through some really, really challenging circumstances. Their kids have got really deep emotional and physical additional needs. They're even more isolated, and there's bits where
I could speak to that.
God forbid something happens and you go, I always wanted a son, and I wanted little Johnny to play for West Ham. Right now, the child I've got is completely non-verbal. I get no eye-to-eye contact, but I'm not allowed to say that out loud. But if I get that moment with that child, that's amazing. And so I suppose they are the people that I think deserve a lot more credit.
And I think I don't think the idea of role model dad exists, because everyone's going through their different, like you've mentioned there, in terms of having disabled children. I myself have a disabled son, non-verbal, with autism, and it comes with a completely different challenge. And I think when I'm looking at, because there's no cut and paste template of perfect dad. My dad, I see as a role model of sorts, but he's not had to go through what I'm going through, and we're both aware of that. But in terms of looking looking to see how I should act in certain situations. That's really difficult. I'm presuming you've got dads in your community then, Dan, who are going through life as dad to someone with SEN. Have you experienced that within DadLaSoul?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a huge number of the dads that are neurodiverse themselves.
Yeah.
There's the community there. So what we have tried to look at, we did a pilot, I think, probably about 4 years ago now, where we did a send play date, and that was based on the idea that the fellow I used to share my office with was a very close friend. His eldest was non-verbal, and he said, "I can't come to your play dates, Dan, because they're nuts. It's sensory overload."
Yeah.
So that makes me really sad. So okay, why don't we just take all the toys and stuff like that, do it, but we'll just dial it down.
Yeah.
So we did, for dads with additional needs, and I think there were 12 or 13 fellas turn up, and some of them were making a 3-hour round trip because
that's a large turnout. That's a big turnout.
Yeah, man.
That is.
So it's something again that is on our roadmap, is to develop more of that, because I know something horrific like 80% of relationships where the children have severe additional needs break down. Yeah. So you're going to be even more isolated, and you can't take the kids out. And if the kids had some sort of sensory overload, people are just going to walk, "Oh, it's a dad. Well, he can't cope, and it's just a naughty child," and stuff like that. Well, I'm not going there. I'm not going to soft play, and they become even more isolated. So there is the best way to describe DadLaSoul is almost like, do you remember the Gremlins, the film?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. When you pour the water over the Gremlins, they pop out. So out of ours, pop out. We've got guys you've got children with additional needs. We've got guys that now get up at 5:30 in the morning and run 10K for fun. We've got theatres. There's all of these sort of subset pocket mini communities, because they come into the main one, said, "Oh, I've got this." It's a guy, right, go and speak to Dave, go and speak to Terry. Oh, by the way, there's that. And so there's a huge subset there. And we've actually, even we've got a very active WhatsApp group, and then we've got a send channel as well, because, if you need to ask something about the ECHP forms, which are just sent to absolutely destroy any kind of family who wants any kind of support. Yeah, you've got a space there. So
that's so interesting.
Is that better than the preschool WhatsApp group? I hope it is, because I just get told off in that group constantly, to be honest. There has been that shift, thankfully. But I don't know if there has, to be honest. I don't know if they just look at me as the bumbling dad, to be honest.
Yeah, you're
look
there
at me
as
like the dad off Peppa Pig. I mean, look at that for an example.
Shall I tell you a little story about Peppa Pig's dad?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What he does for a job?
He was an architect, wasn't he? He's an engineer, right?
He's an architect.
Is he really?
He's studying, right? He cannot be trusted with a bottle of ketchup, right?
Oh, no. Or a pancake.
I hate that as a stereotype.
Well, I saw him nailing something into the wall, and then he managed to somehow nail through the wall and made a hole in the house. And I'm just like, it's not doing anything.
There's a whole Homer Simpson.
There's
a whole Homer Simpson sort of dads are clumsy things going on.
I've got beef with Peppa Pig.
Yeah. We all have. All of us long-serving. How many series are we in?
I wouldn't even
Above
like
10.
to guess,
to
be honest.
Yeah,
but I know Peppa Pig's mum has just had a new baby.
Right.
I don't know.
Okay.
If
Max is clearly in the deep cuts of.
Well, I have
Peppa
a 3-year-old, so I feel some responsibility to know what's happening when he tries and talks to me about Peppa Pig.
That's it.
Yeah.
Get him onto Bluey, whose dad's just an absolute legend.
Yes.
And then that makes you feel bad.
Oh, Bluey. I just can't.
I hear great things.
I just can't. No. I'm really sorry. It's because it's so positive. It's gone too far the other way. I'm like, even when they're exploring hard topics, it's like, within 15 minutes, it's all okay in the end, and everyone understands and everyone's moved on. And I do struggle with that.
I'd like to find out a little bit more about the community at DadLaSoul, what you're doing in the future as well. So you've had all these events going, and they continue. What's the plan? What's the plan for sort of the 1 year and even beyond that, the 5 year sort of plan?
When does this go out? When is it scheduled to
Hopefully.
go out? So make it time sensitive.
Yeah.
Well, I'm hoping that we can, because you told me via email that you've gone full blown Willy Wonka on a new Father's Day event, live and loud. That is it confirmed that it's going to be the
It's done.
UK's?
It's now in the public domain.
Yeah,
That's
and
awesome.
is it going to be the biggest Father's Day event ever?
Ever.
Ever. I think we would be silly not to touch upon that.
The event is on Saturday the 14th, which is the day before Father's Day. And it's a long-held ambition of mine to work with Brighton Football Club. They are our local Premiership team. They have an amazing stadium, amazing community ethos. And never quite happened. And then quite by chance, I bumped in. They built the Premiership's largest fan zone next door. So it's a 3,000 capacity venue with big screens and food halls and stuff like that.
Nice.
Yeah. And I met the event manager, and she said, "I've been told about you. Do you want to have a conversation? Have you got any ideas?" Yeah. Oh, have I got ideas? You are asking the wrong person. So I'm going to take the fan zone and break it into a dad zone. So between 10 and 1, full on Willy Wonka, we've got live bands, DJ workshops, Nerf galleries, keepy ups, dad's pampering sessions, a toddler zone, dance classes. But also I'm going to bring in a load of we've got a brilliant ecosystem of partners. So other men's mental health resources. You can come along with the kids, chat, go nuts, blah, blah, blah. But then actually go, I probably am opening that extra bottle of wine every night.
Yeah.
Can I take a flyer? But also what we've done is our standard play dates go from sort of babies up to about 9-year-old.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah.
They get their own things, or they get activities on there, and they don't want to hang around with the young ones. But for this one, I've opened it up for dads of teenagers as well, primarily because I've got a 13-year-old who thinks everything I do is naff and cringy and whatever. And I've convinced the coach of his football team that they're all going to bunk off and they're all going to come. So we've got gaming stations and all kinds of things. I think there isn't an official Guinness Book of Records, but when we launched Brighton, we had just under 100 dads and God knows how many kids. Right?
Yeah.
This is going to be 5 or 6 times bigger. So if I had the resource to get a Guinness Book of Records, this I am positively claiming.
So this is going to be the biggest DadLaSoul.
I think it's probably going to be one of the biggest the world's ever seen, to be honest, because there is a network of other dad-related organisations. So we all sort of help each other out and stuff like that. And nobody has ever tried anything on this size or magnitude. I'm a nut job because it is 4 weeks' time and I only released tickets yesterday because of red tape.
So people are coming across the nation. Sorry.
Oh, no, I hope so. I don't.
Yeah.
To be honest, we could probably fill that place with our existing community.
Right.
But what I'm going to do is put it out, to the wider scope and different communities with the ideas that people will come in, experience what DadLaSoul is, and then I can plant some seeds.
Anyone listening to this podcast are probably thinking, this sounds awesome. I want to go to the event, first of all, in Brighton, and a lot of people probably up north, we can speak to it here in the East Midlands, are probably thinking, well, I really want something here. I want a DadLaSoul here. Yeah. Why isn't a DadLaSoul here? This sounds awesome. I need this. And so in terms of planting seeds, how can someone do that, Dan?
So we've already got a kind of a waiting list.
Right.
Okay.
of different cities and countries as well. I've been approached by a township in South Africa,
Wow.
yeah, a community college in Atlanta, Georgia, Bristol, Birmingham. So part of this ongoing development work that we're looking at is to create a social franchise model. So you get a DadLaSoul in a box, because I've got to try and distill everything I've learnt over the last 8 years. Yeah, to how we, okay, we've got 4 dads. What do we do? Right, you need to do this, 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 this. So it's like a franchise model, but it's a social, because we don't make any money. You know, we're here for it sounds a bit cringy, but yeah, the betterment of society, or the fact that this will pay dividends 2 or 3 generations down the thing, because they can say, oh, God, my dad used to throw the wickedest tea parties where we'd all dress up with him and his mates. You know,
there's no Tupperware events for dads, is there? There's
not really, no.
We've done tea parties, we've done princess parties. Yeah. So the idea is to scale en masse, but DadLaSoul,
How
I'm
do
young full-timer.
you go about scaling that? I mean, it's such a huge network and a huge... Yeah, you're going to need a pretty big box when you're rolling that out to different cities, put it that way. Yeah.
But I'm the only full-timer. Everybody else is a volunteer or like a freelancer. So as many inquiries that come in, I do not have the capacity.
Yeah.
So part of this expansion thing is to bring in, some more operations people. We're looking very heavily into AI and GPT, how we can create processes and stuff. And my aim is definitely within 3 years to have them around the country. And at least there's several outside of the UK within 5. But it absolutely, obviously from a charity perspective, if you're taking it outside the country, it's somebody else's problem. Who's going to pay for it? So I'm looking for a fairy godfather or VC funding, because there are ways to make money, but in a very ethical way. We have a creative agency. So within our network, we've got dads that are podcast producers, journalists, filmmakers. So we've actually taken on commissions from brands and councils and developed projects using our network. That then goes on to fund our grassroots projects. There's corporates that we're working with to set up DadLaSoul networks within there. There is a spider graph of places where we could be. But yeah, if anyone's listening has got a checkbook.
Yeah, I was going to say, DadLaSoul, you are a charity. You can donate to DadLaSoul, so please do.
I was going to ask, is there a link we can provide, Dan? I don't know whether there's an investment round or a crowd fund or something that we can provide to guys.
There's a crowdfunder going on all the time. Because we always need stuff. This huge event at the Amex, nobody's funding it because it's sort of it came from a random conversation with somebody that this is too much of a good opportunity. I'm not going to turn it down. I'm going to figure it out later on. So there's an opportunity. I can send you the link to share, where even if you can't physically come, you can pay it forward. You can maybe buy a ticket for, a dad a bit more locally that's on a low income. That thing. We have a very low ticket entry price for all our events anyway. And if you cannot afford it, you still come. I'm of a certain age where I went to school in the 1970s. They used to have a thing called the 3 school meals tables.
Yes.
So the kids that were on 3 school meals were sat out there. I wasn't on there, but lots of my mates were. So when I went to the dinner hall, I couldn't hang out with my mates. They wouldn't dream of doing it today. So I don't ever want the situation where a dad and his kids cannot come to one of our events because he's financially struggling.
I think that speaks volumes about your integrity, Dan. I mean, you said earlier that you nearly went bust in November. I mean, this is not a tool to make money. You know, it's really not. It's
responding to a need.
Yeah, you know, it's a public service almost. You know, it is incredible. There's no other word for it, to be honest. And I absolutely love your attitude of just do it. Do you know what I mean? Like, do it and think about it later. I mean, don't apply that to naughty things in life, but the good.
No.
It's like
I've got grown-ups around me. That's why I call them my appropriate adults.
Yes,
they keep the checks and balances there. They keep me interacted. That I'm not going to get back into a cycle of doing stupid hours. I'm not going to. Previously, I'd have a conversation with them. That's a great idea. But I go and do that, not realizing that line item on my to-do list is actually a 3-month project. Would probably take a dozen people and 30 grand. I'd go and do it anyway and not realize I've still got all my other homework to do.
But with DadLaSoul, I mean, there is that portion that you do need to plan and structure, but I suppose it's such almost a reactionary model to the needs of your community. It sort of works having you like that, to be honest, and you can just dart. You know, if there's a need there, you can dart there. And
the format is pretty. We can box it out, but it'll be different speakers, a different theme. So I go, I'm into this. I go, right, Saturday you're running that session. Shows what you're interested. There was a lovely fella. And he said, I'm an accountant. I can't run. So nobody's going to do one about maths. It's boring. Further conversation down the line, I found out he used to be quite a notorious graffiti artist. I was like, right, bang, I know what we're doing. You're there. So it's about all these different dads. You know, you give me a tenner, you give me 2 hours. You put that all in the pot, and then actually the momentum build. Your kids will see you as a different person. I think intrinsically humanity is good and people want to help, but maybe they don't have a lot of spare time or spare cash. It's like, okay, well, what I can do is take it from you, add it to them, and then we literally go stratospheric. That's we want to be part. Men are tribal by nature.
Yeah.
No, it's probably not unfashionable, but we are. We want to belong, whether it be a football team or something.
Absolutely. So speaking of tribes, Dan, you alluded to you are international. You've got a huge community of dads, but there will, by the nature of the world, be dads that you haven't reached yet. So if we will have dads listening to this who we set out that we're not going to actively give advice, but if people hear something and want to use it as advice on the podcast, they can, just as a proviso for us, really. But if someone's listened to this and thought this sounds incredible, which it does, how do you go about getting involved? What's the best way?
Well, the first rule of Fight Club. Do you remember what that is?
Yeah, you're not going to tell us don't talk about it because I'm going to get it the wrong.
That's the thing. That's the first rule of Fight Club. Don't talk about it. First rule of DadLaSoul. Tell bloody everybody.
Yes.
So we're at DadLaSoul on all the socials. So Facebook, Insta. We're doing something like TikToking to be down with the kids.
Are you? How's that going for you? I'm sure your 13-year-old's got something to say about that. My dad on TikTok.
Well, we did a rap video a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
And that went viral. To help parents that hate or struggle with maths. So we actually got paid to produce a rap track.
Incredible,
but with our network, we have amazing rappers and producers and soul singers. So it's very credible. That's a tangent. But I would go, best way to get involved on the socials, pop on to dadlasoul.com. There'll be a little pop up to the newsletters, so you can find out when the new events are coming up. And what I'll do is after this, I'll send you a little link to the crowdfunder. So go, look, if you've got a fiver, right, got 50 quid, right, got 500, mate, I can make £500 go a very, very long way.
You are a resourceful gentleman.
I like to beg and borrow. No, let's say I think people are intrinsically good, but I'm very good at illustrating the wider social impact of if you do this, do you realize this will happen?
Yeah.
And people go, okay, now I get it. Ultimately, we're just make sure that there's not another mum or sister or daughter setting up a charity in the name of their dad who's taken her own life.
Mm.
Hmm.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Because,
Right.
I mean, it does happen and it doesn't get spoken about enough. You know, the whole, male suicide it's a touchy topic for many, but it doesn't get spoken about enough. And it's almost like put it in a box, forget about it. It doesn't happen until it affects you, though. And I think increasingly so. I think people need to get better at putting themselves in others' shoes.
Well, the rates are it's not a competition, obviously, but the
No.
rates are, or the official rates is 84 men a week
Yeah.
under 5, but it's nearly probably 100.
Mm.
So when I found that out a few years ago, actually, that really, really touched me. And then I was
Yeah.
honest some of my own challenges. And I started talking to other people, and they said, yeah, we've also been in that place. And if you think that's 900 people every week, that's the fella you work with, the fella that you get your sandwich from in the morning, could be your boss, could be your brother-in-law. They're going through these things. Nobody talks about it, and then what will happen is they will go and take their own lives, and you're left with this. Oh my God! But he was always laughing and joking.
Yeah.
I didn't, because we don't talk about it. So this is, I mentioned at the beginning, our Trojan horse.
Mm.
We
Yeah.
get people in through the fun and the funk and the fatherhoods and the craziness, get them in and go, right, actually, tell me what keeps you awake at night.
Yeah.
And they come, and literally the stuff that it's come out. We had guys, bless him, he self-harms, or he was self-harming because his wife had postnatal depression, hadn't bonded with their child that he had. So he was dealing with the guilt. We had a guy whose partner, unfortunately, had stage 4 brain cancer. He's got 3-year-old twins, But it doesn't have to be all of that. It could just be, well, my boss is a prick and I'm really, really, really struggling. I think I might lose my job, which means, I'm not going to be a man and be able to provide, or my relationship is broken down and I don't want my kids to come from a broken home.
Mm.
There are suicide does not care what your bank balance is or what your postcode is.
No, not at all. Dan, for those dads that are feeling overwhelmed, that are losing connection in all the ways that we've sort of discussed today, what practical advice, as we sort of come into sort of land a little bit, what practical advice can you give from your experience for them today? What can they walk away with?
Follow us. I'm Dan Flanagan on LinkedIn. If you connect with me and I've found out who you are, I could then send you a link to a crazy car. We've got a very, very active WhatsApp community as well. So no matter where you are, I can give you access, but to keep, the security and the privacy of that, we have to verify who you are.
Sure.
First of all, but then you can talk about it. The best thing people can actually do, I suppose, is if they do have a mate or just somebody they can start a conversation, say, actually, I don't want to talk about West Ham's chances next year or whatever. I'm really struggling. We call it giving a ticket. So if we meet and we're having a conversation, oh, Dan, how you doing? And go, yeah, right, yeah, works because, and you automatically set the tone for a very banal small talk. You go, no, actually, you know what? I probably haven't slept properly in 6 months. I'm on meds for depression or whatever. Because what you? Wow. And immediately that drops the armor and then their stuff comes. But nobody wants to be first on the dance floor at a wedding. It's
Exactly.
Put your hand up and go,
Yeah.
I'm Billy No Mates. It's
And
ego.
yeah, it is.
Just ego.
It is. It is. Strip it away. And we've all got issues. We've all got problems.
The problem is men are building up armor. I know I have in the past. They're building up armor as a defense because of the traditional roles that we've got to be seen as unflinching, stoic, stiff upper lip, all that. As much as mental health has come to the foreground in terms of talking about mental health, we still know it's not opened up between mates as often as it should be.
Which is why,
the conversations, like you're saying, down are surface level. So it takes someone to have the courage to say, actually, you know what, mate, it's really tough right now. And yeah, it's going to take a little bit of courage to do that. But I'm hoping that people listening to us today will sort of see how normal it is becoming, how normal this is becoming now, and that there are communities of dads that are going through very, very similar things. And no matter how glossy the image looks of a dad and the perfect life and the Instagram posts and all this, you don't know what's happening behind that. And there is a community there that is been set up to serve you. And
so maybe they don't have the community physically in their space.
Maybe not.
But there will be online. There is things you can access, let's say on our WhatsApp, our Facebook group, which is private. You can reach out, everything from, can somebody recommend a decent takeaway and my car's broken down? Or we have lots of recommendations for therapists, dealing with toddler tantrums and, the fact that you're all quite tired and stressed.
Yeah.
Maybe lose your rag a little bit too easily. Your child's, changing gender. Yeah, literally, I don't think there is a conversation or subject that we haven't happened or haven't had. And that's what I was sort of meant to mention. In our Thursday night sessions, we have a guest speaker. So that can either be somebody from the community or an outside expert. So picture the scene, 30 guys in there, having a beer, cup of tea, arguing why the Stone Roses is the best band ever, which it is. End of story. Play some.
We won't get into that on this episode, but I feel we could talk at length
just
about
that out there. But yeah, then one of our guys, he told his story, and he was the victim of childhood sexual abuse. Right? During that conversation, 6 other fellas disclosed for the very first time that they'd also been victims. Right? Had I put that on a poster of an evening, come out, lads, and let's, air your dirty secret.
Yeah.
Nobody was done it because we built this community and all these other different activities. Let's say you will be absolutely shocked that when you open up, that people actually can relate, or they might, be able to literally relate. I go, yeah, me too. But you've got that swanky house on the posh estate, or you're that person. You can't have these problems. We're human beings, man.
We are at the end of the day. And do you know what, Dan? As long as you and DadLaSoul are here, we will continue to bang the same drum, because you cannot talk about it enough. You can't. While you're having those conversations, if it touches one person, surely that's enough. To just touch one person who might not have been able to open up before. That's the importance of it. It's
a ripple.
Incredible.
Chuck the pedal. It's that ripple, because they feel better, and then they'll help somebody else feel better, and they'll help better. And it's that role modelling and that example. Look, I did something tough, which was go to a new venue and think that I'm going to be a Billy No Mates on the outside, but all these people know each other. No, I did, and I tried. Christ. I'm sea swimming at 5 a.m. I'm at the theatre on Thursday night. I've got a load of gig buddies that I now go to. And ultimately, my wife is a lot happier with me because I'm not so down in the mouth. And my kids love Saturdays. So, yeah, it's a win-win-win-win-win-win-win.
Definitely is.
Awesome.
Dan, as fathers ourselves, we're probably going to be getting calls in a bit about where we are from our from our respective others, and I'm sure you're the same.
Yeah.
After
I'm starving. Let's put it
10
on.
to 7. I can't thank you enough for joining us on what is our first episode, and what a first episode it's been.
Oh, awesome.
You embody our passion and the reason we're doing this, so it means a lot to us that you've joined for this episode. So Dan, thanks a lot.
Absolute pleasure.
Final
Thank
question:
you.
What are you having for tea?
Well, first of all, it's kind of a bit windy, but as I look out my window, I can see the sea at the bottom of my road. So first of all, I'm going to go and get in the sea because I haven't been in all day, and then I'll think about having an omelette afterwards. But I'm on my own tonight, so no missus, no child, whatever. It's going to be me, sea swim, omelette, and Netflix for a few hours because I am knackered.
Mate, that sounds like a good evening to me. We'll not hold you any longer than we need to, mate. So thank you very much for joining us.